Hey friends, hey everyone. I wanted to talk with you about a concept, idea a question I guess I'm getting a lot these days. And that question is around, how am I able to live like this? How am I able to travel, to have lived in Germany and Austria and Switzerland and in America and in Puerto Rico and in Colombia and in Denmark and in the Netherlands? How am I able to travel and to live in all these different countries? And I know it's a complicated topic with privilege. Let's be honest. There's definitely some level of privilege that ties into that. We can put that to the side. I think a lot of people that'll be watching this video are also going to be from North America, from Europe. I'm in Japan right now. And the reality is that when you're from one of these massive global economies, massive global superpowers, there's a better chance that you're going to have the material resources to be able to potentially live like this. But I don't think it's as simple as just money. I was first inspired to live like this as more of I like to think of it as like a free, minimalistic nomad. I first met people that inspired me to live more like this almost 6 or 7 years ago. This was in 2017 and 2018. These other travelers, backpackers, nomads, they did not have that much money. They lived on a shoestring budget, but what was clear to them was prioritizing how they want to live. And that really inspired me, to the point where I made it a goal to be able to work for a while, save as much money as I could, and then, in a sense, through a variety of different things, buy my freedom, you could say. And I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I think are more important to this freedom topic than just money. Point number one is about what's important to you. What is a priority and what's a value to you? So when I met these other travelers, for them, it was a lot about their happiness, what they could learn, how they could grow, what they wanted to see and experience from this world. And they had a real focus on what they cared about and what was important to them. That's a big part of it. Is this type of life and this way of living and traveling is not for everyone. It's not an easy travel. A lot of people might be lonely, might be missing their friends or their family or their home. This is a fairly special way to live, and I don't think everybody's necessarily built for this. It really probably only works for people that have such a strong focus on learning, growing, and that's potentially more important than family, friends, safety, security, comfort. I've lived in countless situations. This room that I'm in right now is just one of probably hundreds of places that I've slept over the last 10 years. If I valued too much safety and security, comfort, this wouldn't work. It just wouldn't. So I think being clear on what your values are, and there's some great, if you do an internet Google search for value sort activity, you can sort through various personal values and see what are some of your most important values. For me, learning, adventure, growing, discovery, pushing myself, challenging myself in an intellectual way. These are some of my top values. And those might not be yours, but give it a shot. See what your top values would be. Number two, I mentioned it earlier, but it's about minimalism. Minimalism, do a YouTube search, do a Google search. You can watch some great videos about it. There's a couple documentaries, I think, on Netflix or on other different platforms called The Minimalists. But the concept is just that in the 21st century, a lot of us in a lot of developed countries, we have more than enough. We have way more than enough of what we need. We don't necessarily need more cars, more houses, more clothes, more stuff. We don't necessarily need much more of that. What we often need is more of a sense of inspiration, of passion, of curiosity. And for me, that was a big thing. I was fortunate and grew up in a situation where I didn't have a ton of physical material needs. I was lucky to grow up and fortunate to grow up in that type of situation. And I was fortunate to follow that on with good studies, good experience at university, good career jobs, experience in that, and being able to earn and make good money in San Francisco and California. And that essentially took care of a lot of my material needs. There's a great quote from Jim Carrey. Maybe he stole it from somebody else, but he talked about, I wish everybody could get so much money and become so rich and so wealthy, because then they could realize that that's not it. That's not the thing. That's not the thing that's going to make you happy at the end of the day or at the end of your life. So I was fortunate that getting close to the end of my 20s through work and just dumb luck and the way I was able to grow up, my financial needs were basically taken care of. And I didn't need to worry too much about that. How much clothes and how much fancy fashion and other stuff do we need? How many cars and other things do we need? I was lucky that I was never really attracted to a lot of those things. And I had a good amount of stuff when I was growing up. And it was clear to me over time that that was material possessions, more and more stuff, more and more things, and this hedonic treadmill of buying new things, new hits of dopamine and pleasure. It was very clear to me, strangely, at a young age, that this wasn't going to be the thing that I really needed or the thing that I really wanted. And for me, it was more about learning and growing. So implementing minimalism into my life to the extent that I felt I really don't need much. I actually don't want to buy new things. The more stuff that I buy, the more weighed down and the more anchored I get. That was a really great lesson for me, because it helped me really be able to use my resources, use my finances, and use my savings and my money and the money that I earn to put it towards a life and a lifestyle that I really enjoy, and being able to live and learn different countries and languages and cultures and cuisines and lifestyles and habits and lifestyle practices that would fulfill me, that would spark my curiosity and spark my inspiration. So minimalism created a great sense of freedom for me. And I would greatly recommend everybody research that topic, watch some stuff about it, see if you can learn about it. Another topic here is, it sounds a bit esoteric, and I guess I'm in the right place since they've got a lot of Buddhism and Zen topics here in Japan, but it's also around attachment. Attachment is something that can often greatly, it's lovely, it's wonderful. We get attached to people and to things, but it can greatly hold us back. It's something that I'm not immune to this, and I don't know who any of us are immune, who's immune to this. And the classic, like the Buddha talked about, attachment is the root of all suffering. And so I think that's another thing that's greatly enabled me to be able to live like this and to travel like this, is the fact that I've had experiences over the years. And I think the loss of my father, some of the stuff with my family, and one of my really good friends, Andrew, this really taught me that we have to let go of things. There were enough experiences over the years where I greatly experienced loss and a sense of grief with that I learned that life, nothing is permanent. Everything is dynamic and flowing. Things are changing all the time. We're changing all the time. And things come and go. Life comes and goes. That's one of the only constants that there are. And so for me, change has actually become a great part of my life force and my life energy. Being able to change my setting, change my environment, change my habits, change my lifestyle. I love that. The more I get stagnant and rooted in some sort of monotonous way of living, monotonous routine, the more I really feel like I'm fading away, like I'm slowly starving a bit, or that life force, that energy, it's kind of fading out of me. We all get really good at mastering things. We could drive from A to B and be half asleep. So we get very automatic with things. But that breaking that pattern, breaking that routine, continuing to refine yourself and evolve yourself, that's something that's paid so many dividends for me and helped me grow as a person. And that's something that you have to get good at if you want to be able to travel and to grow and learn from different cultures and to live around the world and to live in different places. You have to get good at being comfortable with change and letting go of a lot of things that hold us back. And that can even sometimes be some of our closest friends and closest family. Luckily nowadays, we don't have to fully let go. We can keep in touch with our phones and with our technology. But I guess the point is that a lot of things change and a lot of things don't change. And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere because you're afraid of losing your friends or your family or these places. They'll still be there. And if people come and go from your life, that's often their choice, and it's not necessarily a reflection on you. Sometimes it's good to see who sticks around in your life when you're not there anymore. That's often a very good test. So being comfortable with change, being comfortable with letting go of things and with our attachments, that's very, very, very important. So there's another concept here that I think is important, and it's around this concept of the nomad. There's a lot of talk about digital nomads these days, but something that I think is perhaps for me and for a lot of other people, a very important concept is this topic of a slow nomad or slow travel. There's also, I think, something like about slow food or something like that. But this slow concept, I guess it sounds so ridiculous, but it's having a renaissance in this day and age that we live in, because everything is so fast-paced. It's kind of this fast-paced rat race world that we live in. For me, again, that's another piece of the puzzle here about how I'm able to live like this, is I take things slowly. And what's great about that is it really works well for your budget. I'm now in Japan for 3 months, it'll be 3 months by the time I move on. I stayed in Germany and Austria for years. I generally don't go to a place unless I have at least 3 or 4 weeks, let's say a month, to really dedicate to it. Places require time. New experiences, new cultures, and these lessons, they require time. For us to learn and to grow, find ourselves, that takes time. For a lot of people that are staying here in Japan or staying here in Kyoto, where I am right now, they probably spend the same amount of money in 7 days staying here or 10 days staying here that I spend in a whole month staying here. I've got this room, private room rental in a shared living situation, shared house, shared apartment for like $400 a month. I could easily spend that same amount of money staying in hotels, hostels, ryokans, private resorts. I could spend that same amount of money in 7 days. My point just is taking things slowly has a lot of benefits to it. And so I travel very, very slowly compared to a lot of other travelers or tourists that I meet. It's that slow nomadic way of living that I find terribly fulfilling, because I'm able to have a life. Right now in Kyoto, I've built up a little life here. I have some friends, I have my routines, I have some of my favorite stores, I have some of my favorite foods. I go to certain areas multiple times. I've got a favorite hike over here up the hill with a beautiful spot for sunset. So this is a part of life. And I don't want to sacrifice my health and burning out by speeding as fast as I can through all these different countries. I met a guy, and no disrespect to him, but totally different travel style. I think he was traveling to like 30 countries or 50 countries before he turns 30. And so, in the amount of time that I've been in just Japan, I think he's been to like 20 or 30 countries. Just from my experience and my perspective, I just feel that does a bit of a disservice to these places. There's so much to be learned. There's so much to be experienced. And you only scratch the surface. You only get the surface level of a place. Sometimes the surface level isn't always very good. And it's not always a very accurate reflection of the place, the culture, the people. So for me, this slow nomadic living, being much more reflective and intentional, I've taken so much time to reflect. I take a lot of notes. I write down a lot of things. I've read hundreds of books, listened to hundreds of podcasts, watched hundreds of YouTube videos, and talked with hundreds or thousands of people to reflect a lot on myself and my actions and my behaviors and what's important to me. And actually, where do I want to go? Where are some important places for me? And to focus quality over quantity, to focus on quality and to take it slow. So that's another huge piece of what makes my travels possible and how I'm able to travel around the world and live in different countries for the last 6 or 7 years. I would just recommend to anybody that's looking to live this way. This isn't some video game. We're not trying to collect a bunch of badges, call out to Pokemon here. We're not trying to collect a bunch of gym badges as we go through these countries, or at least I don't think we should. It's more about learning and engaging with the people and the culture and learning and growing as people and becoming more compassionate and understanding, sense of empathy and also tolerance for different peoples and cultures and different religions and those sorts of things. I think that slow nomadic way of living plus this concept of taking time, real genuine time for discussion, reflection, inflection, and insight into ourselves. This is so critical and so crucial to our growth and our development, not as only as individuals, but as a species, as a society. Those are some ideas, those are some concepts of how I've been able to live like this over the years. And I think without these things, it absolutely would not be possible. I actually think sometimes if I had less resources, if I had less money, sometimes it would be easier to travel because, again, you have to go slow then. You actually have to get even more involved in the countries where you're at. There's a lot of ways that people who travel on small budgets, on a shoestring budget, they volunteer, they do an exchange. I know I've met a lot of people here that have the working holiday visa. They're here for a year. They're working in teaching English, or they're working at hostels. They're volunteering in exchange their labor in exchange for their living accommodations. And so they're even more slow mad than I am. And so again, I think actually a lot of how I live in this way is possible, regardless of your finances, regardless of your resources. Often it all goes back to your mindset and to your intentionality. Let me know your thoughts about this and more videos to come. Some more stuff coming soon about Okinawa and the Blue Zone, Kyoto, Japan, and soon headed to Singapore, the 6th newly announced honorary Blue Zone. Going to take it real slow there as well. And so anyways, thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. Let me know your thoughts. Please, it always helps if you like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks so much for being here with me. Take care.